We're here talking with Matthew Staab, men's diver on the UChicago swimming and diving team. Now, Matt, what made you decide to come to UChicago as a student athlete?
I had a really good, a really great recruiting weekend here. One of the divers who's on the team now came with me, and we really hit it off, and I saw a great team dynamic, which is something that was really important to me coming, because I had a really close team dynamic on the team in high school, and I came to UChicago and saw that similar team dynamic and knew it was a team I wanted to be a part of. And on top of that, the facilities are, of course, amazing, and the pool's beautiful, and the athletic center in general is pretty new, so that was also a great motivator.
At what age did you start diving, and what got you interested in the sport initially?
I've been diving, I think, for about 14 years now. So I started when I was 6 or 7. So I started pretty young. And the reason I actually started was because of my brother. He wasn't the most athletic person when he was younger, and tried, every sport he could think of before that. And he got on a board one day, and my parents were like, we should see if he can try diving. And he did it for about 6 months, and then I enjoyed watching him practice, and so I got into it about 6 months, and 6 months after he started.
While swimming is an objective sport with times deciding the winner, diving is much more subjective with judges' scores. How does that aspect affect the divers during competitions?
I think, it's a little tough sometimes. Sometimes there are judges who like a specific type of diver, and they'll judge, for a very specific skill set. The types of divers you see in a competition are very diverse, and so sometimes you'll have a judge or two that isn't really that doesn't like your style of diving as much, and sometimes you just have to learn to brush that off a little bit. But usually we have enough judges judging where it kind of cancels out a little bit of the bias sometimes. But sometimes it can be a little tough if you have a judge that doesn't like your type of diving and you consistently see them scoring lower. But I know when that starts to get to me, Kendra definitely always makes sure to call me over and tell me to, keep my head down and not think about that, and just to keep going.
Inclement weather played a big role over the weekend at the UAA Championships, as the divers made it to Atlanta, but the swimmers went to Cleveland. Was it an extra challenge to be competing away from the rest of the team? And what was it like to follow the results from afar after you wrapped up a day earlier?
I think it's always a little more difficult to compete when the team is fractioned like that. But we did a great job of staying in communication and still rooting each other on, even though we were in two totally different states. So I think, so every morning we were updating them on what we were doing, and they were doing the same. And so I just think we communicated very well, and it made it easy to feel like even if the team was in a different state, that they were still rooting us on, and that they still were letting us know that they were there for us.
After winning a pair of UAA championships last year, did you feel any extra motivation or pressure to defend your titles this year?
I guess there's always a little bit of pressure, but we have some great competitors in the conference in general, and I knew that going in. So, I went in not expecting anything, and kind of feeling like I should start just with a clean slate. And I think you have to go in feeling like you still have to prove yourself every year, and like it's not going to come easily, especially when that competition is there, and especially when you know that competition is there. So I think, there's a little bit of pressure, but I, talked to my coach beforehand, and she made sure I knew that that it wasn't going to come easy, and that I had to, act like this was a totally fresh year.
Now, you made nationals last year and achieved honorable mention All-American status. What kind of experience was that last year at the NCAAs, and what have you learned from it that you think might help you here in the final weeks of the season?
I think learning how to deal with a new level of pressure that I hadn't dealt with before. I think I was really nervous last year, and that kind of got to me at the beginning of nationals and affected my performance at the beginning, and I had to adjust for that when I got there, and kind of put into place a couple of methods to kind of calm myself down and not pay attention to the competition and not get myself worked up as much. So I think I've learned how to deal with pressure a lot better as a result of last year, and I'm hoping that going into these final few weeks of the season, I'll be able to, now that I can foresee what the pressure is going to be, that I'll be able to deal with it a little bit better.